There's a particular kind of silence that settles into a house when everyone has left. Not the comfortable quiet of a Tuesday afternoon, a different kind. The kind where the refrigerator hum sounds louder than it should, where every creak in the floor becomes something you have to explain away, where you find yourself walking past windows without stopping to look out. You already know this silence. And somewhere in the back of your brain, that old reptilian part that doesn't care about your mortgage or your streaming subscriptions, something is paying close attention to it. That silence doesn't stay inside your walls. It radiates outward. It moves through your unlit porch and your uncollected mail and the front door nobody has touched in 3 days. To anyone paying attention, and during the wrong circumstances, people absolutely do pay attention. An empty house doesn't just look unoccupied, it looks like an invitation. This isn't a video for doomsday preppers. This is for anyone who has ever left for a work trip and spent the flight wondering about the house behind them. For the single parent who spent 3 days at a hospital and only realized on day 2 that nobody had walked past her front window since Tuesday. For the woman living alone who carries the quiet exhaustion of making daily safety calculations that most people never have to think about. These people have always existed, and the skill they need, the deliberate strategic performance of occupancy, has always existed too. It just hasn't been explained properly. So let's do that. Not with a gadget list, with the actual psychology underneath it and the mechanics that follow from understanding it correctly. The first thing to understand is how a house gets selected, not the philosophical why, the operational how. Targets get chosen based on observed patterns, not impulse. Someone has noticed something. Maybe the bins sat out 2 days after collection. Maybe the same car hasn't moved in a week. Maybe the porch light clicks off at exactly 11:17 every single night. Pattern, that's the word. Disrupted patterns signal absence. Mechanical patterns signal that no person is actually regulating the house. The difference between those two things and a genuinely occupied home is something a practiced eye reads from a moving car in under 30 seconds. This is the foundational principle. Randomness is the signature of human life. Machines repeat, people don't. A person who falls asleep on the couch forgets to turn off the kitchen light. Someone on a long phone call leaves the bedroom lamp burning while they pace the hallway. Someone who can't sleep is up at 2:15 for 12 minutes and then dark again. None of that follows a schedule. All of it reads from outside as unmistakably alive. When you're building the illusion of occupancy, you are reverse engineering that unpredictability, not security theater, a performance that survives scrutiny. Start with light. A dark house after nightfall is a dead giveaway. A house with every light blazing all night is nearly as bad. It reads as staged to anyone who has been watching more than one evening. A genuinely occupied house looks inconsistent. Here's what that actually means in practice. Kitchen light from 6:40 to 8:10 when dinner happens and dishes get done. Living room from 7:55 to 10:25, overlapping with the kitchen for a while because two people rarely move room to room at exactly the same time. Bedroom briefly from 9:50 to 10:05. A bathroom light at 2 a.m. for a few minutes. That is what a person looks like from the outside, not a clean schedule, a life. Smart plugs and outlet timers can build most of this, but only if you program them with deliberate irregularity. A popular option is the fake TV device, around $30, which mimics the pulsing color shifts of an actual screen and placed behind window glass becomes one of the most convincing occupancy signals at any price point. The brain pattern matches that specific quality of light to someone home watching a screen from even a passing vehicle. If $30 isn't in the budget, a cheap smart bulb set to a slow, color-cycling random mode does a surprisingly similar job for under $10. The part most people miss, shadows matter as much as the light itself. A lamp in an empty room throws a static shadow that doesn't change for hours. A ceiling fan near that lamp introduces movement into the light, irregular, shifting, alive-looking, for essentially zero cost. Most people don't consciously notice the absence of shadow movement, but the watching brain, over time, absolutely does. Sound is the second layer, and this is where most security thinking goes quietly wrong. A radio at the same volume on the same station running for 14 hours reads exactly like a radio someone forgot to turn off. It's not convincing, it's a tell. A genuinely occupied house has sound that shifts, conversation that rises and falls, a door closing somewhere inside, footsteps. A single creak from inside a house to someone standing at the perimeter produces an immediate and involuntary reassessment. It is one of the most effective signals available, and it costs nothing. Apps like Presence or ambient household sound playlists on a Bluetooth speaker handle this layer cleanly. If you're working without reliable power or want something even simpler, a talk radio station combined with a bathroom fan on a timer creates an excellent layered effect. The voices add human texture. The fan adds mechanical background noise that makes the voices feel embedded in a real environment rather than floating. Battery clock near a hollow wall, wind chimes inside a slightly open window. All of these introduce irregular, living sound. And a dog, or the convincing suggestion of one, remains the single highest return deterrent available. Not because it poses a threat, but because it introduces a variable nobody wants to calculate against. There's a story from security research about a house cased 3 times in 2 weeks. Nothing happened. The occupant returned from a work trip to find that her neighbor, who'd been collecting her mail and running her lights on a timer, had also let his dog sleep in her entryway each evening, visible as a silhouette through the frosted sidelight beside the front door. The would-be intruder, interviewed later in an unrelated case, mentioned that house specifically, said it felt busy, said it felt like someone might come through the front door any minute. That is the feeling you are building, not impenetrability, presence. Researchers who study criminal decision-making call this the abort trigger, the moment when accumulated signals tip someone from viable target to too complicated to bother with. No single layer produces it. The flickering light alone is dismissible. The audio alone is dismissible. But 3 or 4 signals together, all pointing towards the same conclusion, create a cognitive load that most opportunistic threats simply won't carry. Exterior signals work differently because they operate in daylight and on anyone passing, not just someone standing still. Picture a man driving past your house twice in one afternoon. First pass, he clocks the porch. Second pass, he's already running inventory. Car in the driveway or not. Mail and packages sitting out or collected daily. Garbage bins in or still on the curb 2 days after pickup. Grass trimmed or growing past a neighbor's line. Each detail is a data point. Together, they build a verdict in under 60 seconds. A borrowed car parked in your driveway does more work than most security gadgets. Mail collected daily matters enormously. A path that is swept, a porch that shows recent foot traffic, a door with a worn threshold. These communicate a presence that no interior light can replicate from the street at noon. If your absence runs longer than 2 days, exterior management needs active attention. A neighbor or friend who comes by once daily, at a different time each day, same time every day is a pattern, different time is a person, is worth almost no device you can buy. Now the scenario that gets the least attention and deserves the most. You are home, alone. The problem isn't that the house looks empty, it's that it looks occupied by exactly one person. Certain threat profiles are not deterred by single occupancy. Some are specifically more interested in it. The answer isn't fear, it's a slight expansion of the performance. You are no longer projecting someone is home, you are projecting multiple people are home. It's worth saying plainly, for many people, especially women living alone, this is an unfair calculation to have to make. The fact that simulating cohabitation is a practical safety tool is a genuine indictment of something. We can hold that truth and still use the tool. The two things are not in conflict. The signals for multi-occupancy are specific. 2 lights active simultaneously in different zones, bedroom and living room, not just one. Audio with more than one voice, even briefly. A second pair of shoes by the door. A jacket on a peg that doesn't look like yours. A bicycle leaning against the exterior wall that someone else might own. None of these are statements. All of them are questions that have to be answered before anyone can be confident about what they're dealing with. Questions cost time. Time erodes confidence. Confidence is what they need to proceed. The physical layer, locks, reinforced entries, window latches, is the actual last line and the one you never want to reach. A deadbolt on a hollow core door with a standard strike plate gets kicked in fast enough to make you angry watching the footage. Strike plates with 3-inch screws anchored into the wall stud rather than just a door frame cost under $20 and an afternoon. A cut wooden dowel in a sliding window track defeats forced entry for under $1 of lumber. Not sophisticated, just routinely skipped. Security film on interior window glass doesn't prevent entry, it defeats silent entry. Glass held together by film has to be struck repeatedly before it gives way, and each strike produces noise. In a house performing occupancy correctly, noise is the last thing anyone approaching it wants to produce. The film doesn't make the glass stronger, it makes the glass louder. One final thing, because this is where instinct fails people at exactly the wrong moment. You are home, alone, and something outside has made you want to go dark and quiet and small. Kill the lights, go silent, disappear. That instinct is understandable. It is also frequently counterproductive. A house that was showing light and movement and then suddenly goes completely dark and silent is broadcasting something. It's broadcasting frightened. Frightened and alone is a readable signal with its own specific meaning. The better response is controlled normalcy. The light stays where it was. The audio continues. You have moved away from ground floor windows into a room with a locking interior door, positioned with options, but the stage has not changed. The house tells one story. You are somewhere inside it, calm, and not where anyone expects you to be. That is not hiding, that is controlling. A house that reads as lived in, running on rhythms no single observation can fully decode, with someone interior and aware and not visible from any approach, that is the goal state. Not a fortress, a home that looks from the street like too much to bother with. Warm, a little noisy, lit in ways that suggest someone going about their evening with no awareness of being watched. That feeling is not accidental, it is built. And now you know exactly how to build it.